the Evolution Security Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Evolution Security Podcast. We got the Tactical Twins again, and we did some Twinkie stuff. We'll let you judge on that as you're watching video. BCM hats and Metallica t-shirts. So, and Paul, he didn't get the memo. We should have told him, but that's all right.
Didn't get the memo.
But that's all right. So we are really stoked to have on for a second time Mr. Paul Sharp, an amazing wealth of knowledge, part of the Shivworks group, and part of the Straight Blast Gym. And you're just such a great source and a freaking cool dude, like we were talking about beforehand. You've got a rock and roll attitude, and I can jive with that. So, buddy, Thanks for coming on again. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. Thank you for having me back on. It's always an honor, man, a privilege just to get to chat with you guys, especially guys that are out doing the work. You know, you guys are, actively trying to get better and improve, and then also share a message of improvement to everybody else. Like, look, what I like is that you guys have a podcast where you talk about all these subjects, but you're also doing all these subjects. So it's like, look, man, we're going to talk about it, but then how about you come with us and do it? And I dig that, man. That's the way to be. That's how I try to be. And I like to be around people that are like that too. So thank you for having me again.
Well, Paul, you epitomize that, buddy. You're a humble dude. I mean, you definitely walk the walk and do the work. And frankly, Aaron and I, when we started this with Brian back in the day when he was on the show with us, that was what it was about to us, was that we wanted to be able to put out information from people like you, people like Craig, Mike Brown, Cecil, that we knew would help people become harder to kill and better people. And most assuredly, that's why we started this show. Make no mistakes about it. We didn't think we were going to get rich. Certainly aren't getting rich out there. We don't care about that.
Right.
We're just, really enjoying. We're humbled to have such support. So, Aaron, your thoughts on that, buddy?
Oh man, it's I think you started alluding to it, Eric, but the point was we kind of started this, to be honest, a little bit selfishly. We're like, okay, let's do this. And a lot of it is impetus to remain accountable to our audience, bringing them the information. But if we aren't holding ourselves accountable to what we promote and push out to our audience, then we aren't doing what we should. So yeah, that it's cool that someone like you, Paul, notices that. And yeah, there's just no other way to be. Am I gonna win nationals at USPSA or I'm probably gonna be 65 when I get my black belt, but that's all right.
That's all right.
Keep walking down the road.
Yeah, man. Keep going after it. And that's one of the cool things about putting the work in or creating a podcast or a training company, is that then you get to bring people in, or you get to talk to people and interview people and pick their brain on subjects that you're interested in. That's the coolest thing about it, man. It's just like, how can I make what I love part of like my gig? Like how can I get it to a point where it's like I'm maybe I'm not getting paid to do it, but it's a little easier for me to do it because these guys will talk to me, and it's really cool, man. It's just one of those things that just keeps feeding, it keeps feeding itself. Get that loop. just keep growing and evolving. It's so cool.
Yep. Amen.
But
Well, Paul, for our audience members out there that may not know you, you should be a household name, frankly. Um, but for our audience members that may not know you, we don't have to do a big version because we're going to point folks back to your previous show. But give us a quick bio, real quick.
Yeah, so real quick, I started training wrestling when I was a little kid. Found judo a little bit after that. Started training judo at the National Guard Armory. I grew up out in Maryland, so on the eastern shore of Maryland, so a little tiny area of the country. I want to say the county probably has less people than the most towns people live in. I think our county was right around 30,000. So that's in the entire county. The town I grew up in was like 700 people. So finding training all that was a little difficult, but I did find wrestling, thank God, and I don't say that lightly, because it kept me on the straight and narrow, kept me out of trouble. My wrestling coach from an early time on was a hardcore. Um, I think he was a Baptist minister or something, man. He was something like that where he didn't take any guff from anybody. And he had some rules in place, like he didn't want to catch you smoking cigarettes or drinking beer and all these little things. And man, just having that early influence just put me on a good path and set me, towards where I am today. So did that all through school. Didn't have the academics. We can get into it later if you guys are interested. But for those that don't know, I was diagnosed with ADD. Went back when I was like 6 years old. So this is in the 70s. So this one is actually legit. Not that it's not legit now, but now, we're so quick to like, hey, that little boy's climbing that tree. Let's give him some drugs, and tame that wild man. And like, that's the worst thing you can do to that kid. But I was definitely out of control, had some issues, and I had dyslexia. Or have it still. So I was having a hard time reading. So they put me in a special ed class. And so that from a very young age, now keeping in mind where I came from, it's a small, tiny part of the state of Maryland and just a small area. So all the kids from all the school district in that area all went to one classroom for special ed. So kindergarten through eighth grade, we all were in the same room. The teacher was checked out, not paying attention. And so it was not a healthy environment. And it taught me early on that if you're bigger and stronger, you will take what you want from those that can't fight back. And so that kind of sparked my journey into figuring out how to wrestle, how to box, how to defend myself, basically. And that carried over into my adult life. Once I got to the junior college age, wrestling was no longer an option for me. Like I said, academically, I just didn't have it to go further with wrestling. And at that point in my life, I was about 22, 23 years old. Kind of weird for a 23-year-old to be in a high school wrestling room, trying to wrestle. So I didn't have anywhere to go. And that's when I discovered the Jeet Kune Do concepts. And from there, I discovered Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in 1993. And then I just trained both of those things as hard as possible for years and years. And that's what led me basically to a law enforcement career in 1998. I became a police officer, and I worked as a police officer for 22 years up until recently, retired in 2018. Or 2020 rather. And that was it, man. Got into the gym business and I was always working both pretty much full time. It's kind of funny. I always had two full-time jobs. I was working anywhere from 6 to 10 hours a day in the gym, coaching and training myself. And then I was also working a day gig, as a police officer for 8 to 10 hours each day. So always had those things going, and then traveling to teach too, teaching seminars around the country, around North America. And so that kind of led me to where I am now, man. So I don't know if that intro makes any sense or not, but try to get kind of the pertinent facts in there. Like, hey, this is where I started. I started in fear. I started in an environment where I'm not trying to like make it greater than what it was or worse than what it was, but it was rough. I was a first grader in a room full of big kids that were mean. And, like my first experience there, my first day there, this kid comes over and takes my lunchbox, turns it around, takes all my stuff out of my lunchbox, walks away, sits down, starts eating it. And welcome to your new schools, dude. Like that was school, So um, having that fear base, understanding and looking back on it, like, why do I do what I do? We all have those questions, right? Because you have friends that say, hey, man, why do you do what you do? Why do you do all this stuff? Like, what are you worried about? What are you afraid of? And at this point in your life, you're probably like, I'm not afraid of much. There's not much out there I'm worried about. Same with you guys, right? Like, there's just not a whole lot that's going to happen that you're not going to be able to take care of business. And so then why do you keep doing it? But then I think now I do it because I love it. And I got a community, and I got like a whole tribe of dudes all over the country, all over the world that I talk with regularly and train with and all that. But those initial days, man, it was fear. I was scared to death. I spent days just sitting at my desk hoping that I wouldn't get selected for the daily beatdown that happened, with the bigger kids beating up the little kids and stuff. And so that's what motivated me to get into it. But once I got into it, and then I got more capable, and then I really wasn't worried about it anymore, then I just did it because I love it, and I can't ever see a day where I'm not doing it. And then I ended up in a job where, fortunately or unfortunately, somebody tried to kill me my first month on my own out of FTO. And so that motivated me even greater to figure out, how do I bridge the gap between the sport stuff that I knew how to do, from jiu-jitsu and judo and wrestling and boxing, and kind of more the street stuff, I guess you would call it, from the Jeet Kune Do concepts, like the eye jabbing and headbutting and all that stuff. And so that just kind of led me into that path. And so here I am today. So
Well, Paul, interestingly enough, I know that a big part of why I, started down the path to martial arts when I was younger was being bullied too. It sounds, I don't think I was bullied as bad, from what it sounds like that you went through, but I was definitely bullied. And I know that it kind of put in my mind, is like, man, I am not going to allow this anymore, and
yeah,
that kind of, that started it for certain. Um, and and I was going to bring this up a little later, and not necessarily specifically jujitsu, but one of the favorite things that you have said through the years, that I really liked, was that jujitsu is a superpower,
yeah,
you know, and
yeah,
I and it really is. And I think in a lot of the things that we do, not just jujitsu, but a lot of the combat sports based stuff, man, it's all superpower,
yeah, yeah. It definitely is, man. Gives you that confidence, right?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I always say it like this. Maybe our audience is tired of hearing it, but I'm going to keep saying it because I love my wife. So I pushed my wife into getting into jujitsu, and jujitsu is very important to me. But the last several years, I haven't put in as much as maybe I should. But so my wife got into it, and she went. It's her favorite outlet, and
Yeah,
she weighs 75 pounds less than me, and I cannot I can get her in a submission maybe once every two rolls.
yeah,
She's great, and that every time I think about her in that sense, I remember you saying in a post, you were responding to me in a post, and you said, "Yeah, man, it's a superpower." That's a fact. If
yeah.
if 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 a woman
It is.
can dominate a heavier dude, that's a superpower.
Right. It really is. Jiu-jitsu really for me, has been the thing that martial arts always promised to be. Like martial arts always tells you, you'll be able to, you know, beat up three or four people all at once, and the little guy can beat up the big guy, and all these things. and rarely does that come through, with
Hmm.
certain martial arts. But with jiu-jitsu, because of the way that we train it, because of the testing and the hardening process of it, where you're under that pressure all the time, it develops you into a person that can actually do what the martial arts promised you would be able to do. You will be able to defend yourself. You will be able to protect yourself. You will have a superpower on tap. Like, it's just a matter of when and where, but you're ready to go. You're good. And having that ability is just, it's such an extraordinary feeling, you know? And I tell people too, like, listen, even if you don't want to, if you never want to compete, you never want to fight, I get it. Totally get it. But you still should train it, because jiu-jitsu is one of the few things where you get that perfect cocktail of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, right? You get that dose. Your body is a pharmacy, and through jiu-jitsu, you get all of those feel-good chemicals released into your body. You can get the dopamine and the other stuff from like Muay Thai or boxing, but the chemical that's released when you have contact with another human being, oxytocin, right? Like, that's why they lay babies on their mama's chest as soon as they're born,
Hmm.
right? Because it's that bonding chemical. You end up rolling with people where you're simulating murder, right? Like, I have you in a choke, or you have my arm extended or my shoulder, and my brain knows I'm in trouble. My brain knows, like, rut-row, like something's going to break. But then I tap and you let me go. And that's like a trust fall from the top of a building. That's like me standing on top of a building and falling backwards and you guys catching me. Like, you're never going to let me get hurt. As much as possible, you will not let me get hurt. And it's up to you. And so that develops this bond and this trust between training partners that you just aren't going to find anywhere else. Especially in the day and age we live in now, where most people spend the majority of their day in a cubicle or remote. So many people work remotely now and all these things, so they have very little contact with other people. I tell them, I'm like, listen, even if the part of like having a superpower doesn't appeal to you, the part of having a group of people who want your best interest in mind and only your best interest, that want to push you and drive you and make you better, and they are happy when they see you and they're disappointed when they don't, where else are you going to find that?
Yeah,
Like, they
man.
want you there, man. So
Some
find that group and start training. Get in
that's
there and get
awesome,
after
Paul.
it. Yeah. It's
I
like,
think
get
some of
in,
the best salesmen for jujitsu, right there, brother. Excellent.
right? Yeah. It's like, you'll make yourself better, you
Well,
know?
well, speaking of jujitsu, some more. I feel silly. I'm not at all. We aren't super close. I've trained with you once or twice. Of
Mhm.
course, we interact online, and we've had you on the show. But I felt silly not realizing that you had moved to Idaho. And it's been a while since I figured it out.
Yeah,
And I may have texted you or something, and like, out in Idaho now. But anyway, let's talk about your move to Idaho. Um, Man, to me, just from the outside, it appears to me like that was an awesome move for you.
it was. It definitely was what I needed. Living in the Chicago area, there's so much to do there. There's a lot of positives to living there. But for me, I just needed the change. I needed the mountains. I needed the trails. I needed the rivers. I needed just country. And I needed to get back out and get back, because that's how I grew up. I grew up on the eastern shore of Maryland. You have the Chesapeake Bay on one side, you
Yeah.
have the Atlantic Ocean on the other, and so, and in between, there's all kinds of rivers and wooded areas and stuff. And so, I just grew up, outside my whole life. And then, when I lived in the Chicago area, it's a little different. You have to travel in order to find that stuff. You got to drive a couple hours sometimes to find a remote area where you can just hike and kind of get yourself evened out. So coming out here, it just, man, I walk out my front door and there's a trailhead, and then 20 minutes later, not even 20 minutes, I'm out there and there's nobody around, and so it's been good for me from that perspective, just to kind of get myself regulated, and just to kind of decompress a little bit too from just 20 some years of, my job, just to get back in touch with what's important to me, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I made that move. I think that was 2021 or 2020, somewhere in there. I moved out here. So
Yeah, I think because I was deployed in 2020. I think it was sometime towards
yeah,
the end of 2020 that I in fact noticed it. And I
yeah,
did think to myself, I was like, I bet you that's going to be really good for Paul. And it certainly seems from, like I said, from the
yeah.
outside that it was
It
awesome.
was, and COVID kind of did COVID was kind of the final straw, that broke that camel's back for me with the way the government came down on everybody in Illinois. I mean, it's already communist country there, in that area around Chicago.
Yep.
It's already, yeah, you're already behind the wall there. But the way they came down on businesses and business owners, and I'm having the police, and nothing against the officers. I understand, if they have a complainant, they have to respond. And one day I'm there and these guys come in, and, it's nothing unusual, for these guys to stop by. And I was like, hey guys, I was there by myself because it's COVID. So I'm there by myself. I'm like, hey guys, what's happening? I'm like, you guys, the Keurig's right there. If you want to get some coffee, you guys know where the bathrooms are. Let me know if you need anything. And I was starting to walk away, and they're like, well, we kind of need to talk to you. I'm like, all right, man, what's up? And I'm thinking training, you know what I mean? I'm all kinds of different things. And they're like, well, there's a lady out in the parking lot. She said you're in here running classes, and she called and complained, and she's actually standing out there. And I went and looked at the out there. There's standing out there in the parking lot on the phone, and just watching to see what these guys are going to do to me. And I go, okay, well, you guys want to walk around? You can see there's nobody in here. If you want to go tell her, the world's safer now. Thank you for your service, ma'am. And you called me in for trying to work. And they kind of were embarrassed too. They're like, yeah, we don't know how much longer we're going to be able to do this, man. I'm like, I get it, bro. So I'm like, well, grab yourself some coffee, man, and hang out for a minute. So, when you walk outside, you can tell her you were in here for a little while. And, you know, it just hit me as odd because at that very same time, I look across the street and there's a Wendy's with people in the drive up, and there's a McDonald's caddy corner from there, with people in the drive up, and a Dunkin' Donuts with people in the drive up. And nothing against people grabbing fast food, but they can be open, but I can't.
Yeah.
So the people you're going to eat food that's not good for you, but you can't come do something that is good for you. That might actually counteract that bad food,
Oh yeah.
And that was it for me, man. I just said, well, you know what? I got to get out of here, man. This place has lost its mind, like this doesn't make any sense. So that was it. And we were shut down. So I thought, never a better time than now. So let's go. And then here I am.
Well, excellent. I was curious if that had anything to do with it, to be honest, Paul.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to press the issue because I didn't know if that was correct or not. But the thing about COVID, and I know we've probably got audience members. I'm sure that we have audience members that may have or may still to this day believe some of what was pushed out there. But I'm just going to say it. I mean, the amount of tyranny and control that was executed during that period of time, I mean, just baffles me. And now we're all being proven correct about, a lot of,
Everything.
yeah, the real
Everything.
science that was
Yeah.
suppressed. But I
It's,
go ahead, buddy.
no, I was just going to say, it's very frustrating now to hear people be like, well, we didn't know any better, so just let it go. I'm like, but you were going to fine me. You were down with me being fined $7,500 a day if I was open. You were cool with that. Also, you're cool with all the people who lost their jobs because they didn't want to do the vaccine, whatever. You're cool with all that. You're cool with people in getting in people's faces in public spaces because they're not wearing a mask. But now we're expected to just let it go. Like I'm supposed to just be cool with you, and I do agree. Like for my own sake, you have to forgive people. There's a reason that's like, you know, a teaching in every spiritual practice, right? Is forgiveness. You got to forgive, or you're just going to keep carrying that weight around. Um, but at the same time, though, there's a side of me that doesn't want to let it slide. There's a side of me that's like, yeah, but I remember. You can pretend now because now we know better and now we know more about it. You can pretend now, or they can pretend now, rather, that, well, yeah, I never was, but I remember. I
Mm-hmm.
remember, and I remember watching my business go under and watching things fall apart. And there was a whole lot happening in my personal lifetime at that time, too, that, I mean, I try to be honest with people and straight up, man, and as transparent as possible. Like I'm a flawed human being. I'm not the best man on the planet in a lot of ways. And, my marriage was falling apart. I wasn't the best husband, and also I reached the point where I just didn't want to work on it anymore. And circumstances being what they were, it just there was a lot in that situation that was going awry. And, coming out here and just disengaging from a whole bunch of stuff and a whole bunch of toxic behavior, um, stepping away from the COVID mess and not being part of that anymore, and not dealing with the day in, day out fight with the local city government about whether I can be open, whether I can even be in my gym. And man, they were talking there for a while. I don't know if you guys remember, they were talking for a while like you couldn't even drive. Like they were talking about the COVID passport. In order to drive to and from work, you would need some paperwork from a doctor saying it's necessary for you to be on the road. You know, and I just was like, man, this isn't healthy, man. I'm getting in a dark space here with everything combined. I need to get myself together and just, man, I got to go. And so coming out here allowed me to kind of get that 10,000-foot perspective on everything and look back at everything and examine what I did wrong, what I did right, think about it, and just say, look, man, at the end of the day, I know my heart. I know what my relationship is with my creator, and I know what I believe. And the things that I did wrong, I ask for forgiveness. The things I did right, I'm not going to like lord that over anybody, you know. And then I'm just gonna start fresh here. Andy Stump says, one of the things he says I really like is never be afraid to reinvent yourself. Never
Yeah,
be afraid
I've
to
heard him
pull
say
a
that.
hard stop and reinvent. And so I just said, man, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm still me, but I'm just gonna start over here and start with a clean slate. Bygones are bygones, and let's just get to work, and let's do what we do best, and that is make good people dangerous to bad people and help people become better, and I'll become better, and let's just get after it. So,
Yep. Awesome, Paul. And what thank you for, man, just giving us some awesome things to think about. And it makes me happy for you that you did make that decision to move on and reinvent yourself, because again, I I know I'm repeating myself, not knowing you extremely well. I know I don't have the same relationship with you that say you have with Craig or Cecil
yeah,
or Mike Brown, but I saw from the outside that your life was better,
yeah,
just
yeah, for sure.
I'm seeing that. So very, very cool. Well,
Yeah, man. Thank you.
congratulations on that move, man. Real
Yeah,
happy for you. Well, it's probably a good segue point. Aaron, you wanted to talk about knife defense, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And there was, yeah, I got Eric on a text and I said, man, I've got some reasons to have Paul on to talk about knife defense. Now, number
Yeah.
one, I'll start with a pretty vivid video that I saw, and this is just again for a vivid example. So, all over the place, you can see these really tragic videos of real murder occurring on video, right? But
Yeah.
it's also illustrative for a lot of reasons. But this is just I bet you've seen this video, but there's a couple of guys just standing. It looked like they're in a back alleyway or something, and these guys are standing off doing the ego dance, and
Yeah.
just nonchalantly, one of these guys just pokes the guy in the chest right here. Di- Nobody saw it coming. I mean, it was just ridiculous, right? Obviously, he got him probably in the heart, and just in a
Yeah.
few seconds later, that dude collapsed right on his face, dead in that parking lot. And it was
Yeah.
just that, you know, that's honestly, that's something hard to defend against. But okay, let's take it back a step. We're going to already try and not get into that position anyway, because we're not going to do the ego dance thing, we're going to try not to let someone get in that space. But that's just a vivid example that I'm talking about. Man, some guy on the street can poke you, and then it's done. So,
Yeah.
but I had an instance where I had to confront this guy that was smoking cannabis right by my family and everybody at a soccer game. I don't care what the guy does. I was like, hey man, there's 50 of us trying to figure out who is smoking this while we're watching our kids
Yeah.
play. Actually, it was rugby. I, and I said, man, just if you could move down the way, and go ahead, smoke what you want, no big deal. And of course he got pissed at me, and started, he didn't get up in my face or anything, but then he did start kind of walking past me, and it occurred to me right then, what if this dude pulled a blade? Of course, man, I had this Boresight Solutions 19 right in my waist, but I wouldn't have been able to do anything. And I texted Eric. I said, "Man, I I asked the question. I knew the answer. I said, Eric, in that instance, the only thing I would want to do right is control that blade." And he said, of
Yeah.
course, answered in the affirmative. Absolutely, Aaron. You aren't getting to any tool when that blade's moving right on you. And so again, here we go. I said kind of selfishly, I want to just talk about this and get this across to our audience, that this is a hole in defense that
Yeah.
a lot of people don't think about. They think they're going to be able to, hey, he's bringing a knife to a gunfight. I've got the gun. He's got the knife. But no, he's got an advantage on you with something that moves in split seconds right on your body.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we could just talk about that, and um, because I know Eric, the reason why I wanted to call you is because Eric showed me some of your work from one of your classes in with knife defense. I don't remember what course that was, Eric, but
Yeah, I think I don't remember, Paul, if I mean, it was essentially your MDoc,
Yeah.
or at least a good portion of it,
Yeah.
up there at the Straight Blast Gym headquarters. Awesome experience.
now
Yeah,
what's that
the two
acronym?
model. What's that, Aaron?
What's that acronym, MDoc?
The is Let me see if I remember, Paul. So it's multidisciplinary optimization course, right?
Yes, that's it. Yeah. And the one that was in the headquarters that you attended was heavy on the knife defense side,
Mhm.
because they just had an issue with a guy with a knife. So they were like, "Hey, if you come in and flex a little bit into the flex the curriculum into the knife defense side, that'd be great." So that we did some more knife defense stuff there. But
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
the
and
just
main,
wanted
frankly, go ahead, Aaron.
I just wanted to make sure that this is a topic we've not really talked about on our show, and it's just so important, especially the way I felt ill prepared to deal with that in that very instant, right?
Mhm.
So that's I
Sure.
just want to really get this good conversation out to our audience.
Yeah. So one of the things people have to understand with the knife is that it is, to me, more dangerous than a pistol in that clinch range. So arm's length, it's more dangerous than a pistol. Maybe even, a step outside of arm's length. So 6 feet, 0 to 6 feet. My go-to would be the knife. So if I think about it from that perspective, what I would prefer to have in my hand at 0 to 6 feet is a fixed blade, because it's going to be really hard for you to stop me. It's going to be really hard for you to, because think about with the pistol, say this is the muzzle, right? Once that muzzle's averted, it's just going to be loud, but it's not going to hurt you, you know? So if you think about it that way, you can avert my blade, but I can articulate my wrist to get it back on you. And so every time I can turn that blade back onto you, maybe I'm not punching holes in you, but I'm making cuts. I'm making bites, right? So I'm letting some blood out. So, and you're going to respond to that. You're going to respond to those cuts, So looking at it from that perspective, the last thing I want to introduce in the 0 to 6 foot range is a pistol. I don't want to bring the pistol into play. And I had a friend, we were having a conversation, and he's got a sub-second draw. So under 1 second, he can draw and make a hit at 0 to 6 feet. And I said, cool, man. I said, we're gonna take, we started with a SIRT pistol, and of course, it always escalates up into, well, let's get the airsoft in here, because I think I got you and you said I didn't. So let's find out. So we took, and him drawing an airsoft pistol against a guy who has no training. So think about it now. So human reaction time is 0.25 or so, right? So about quarter of a second or so is human reaction time. You make the draw, you make the movement to come down and come up with this pistol. The person standing in front of you has a quarter of a second to figure out what you're doing and start moving. So if in that quarter of a second they move, they just changed everything, right? Because they're no longer that cardboard standing in front of you that you can sub-second draw on and put a hit right in the eye box, right? So now that eye box just moved one direction or the other. So now you're trying to come up and track. At the same time, they're bringing their hands up and grabbing because there's a threat coming at them, and it's you in reaction to grab that threat and keep it away from you, right? So what we found happen over and over again was this guy he's an awesome shooter. He couldn't put effective rounds on the target, which was a live human in front of him moving, whose only coaching I gave that guy was don't let him shoot you. The second the second you think he's moving for a gun, stop him. Just don't let him shoot you. Don't tackle him. Don't close the distance. Don't foul the draw, but just don't let him hit you. And now we changed. I said, now come up with a knife. I want you to come up with this training drone, just a push dagger, Shivworks, the blue handle, training push dagger. Come up with that and punch. And every time he brought his hands up, he got cut. He got punched in the hand, So now it changes things, because now instead of just a loud noise that goes past and doesn't do any damage, it's no loud noise, but it's damaging the hands. It's damaging the body of the person that's trying to move it offline. So, all that to say that 0 to 6 feet, the blade's the most dangerous option, in my opinion. And then how do we deal with that dangerous option? So dealing with it, the solution isn't for me to introduce my pistol. The solution is for me to control that weapon-bearing arm and not let them have it back. Then I can start working on introducing my own blade or my own pistol. But first and foremost, I got to shut their ability to punch holes in me off. I got to shut that down. And so if we look at old text, there's like old fencing manuals and from Spain and Italy and even from the 1400s, where you'll see, guys they've lost their sword or their knife or whatever, and they are holding with both hands on the weapon bearing arm of their opponent. You know, so it's tried, it's proven, you know. I need to grab onto that arm with both hands, even if I don't have a whole lot of skill. Even I'm not spending every day doing jiu-jitsu or wrestling or whatever. Grab that thing like a baseball bat and keep it away from you. And don't let them have it back. That's your most important first step. Now, people will say run, you know, I love like, you know, the comment section, you know, is the ultimate IQ test. You know, when people make comments and you read it and you're like, you didn't pay attention to anything that was said. You didn't pay attention to anything that just happened here. The comment section, they'll always, on any knife defense video, it's always somebody will write Nike defense as if that's like God's voice coming down through a hole in the clouds, beaming down Nike defense. Yeah, dude, of course. Like if I could run, I would. But if I'm there with my 84-year-old mother or my kids, you know, where am I going to? I'm just going to leave them. I'm going to run off and leave them defend. Or, you know, or like you know, you're at the game, you're with your family. This person's walking by you. Where are you going to run?
Yeah.
You know, there's nowhere to run to. You're going to have to deal with it. And so when we take that off the table, I have to stay here and deal with it. What do I do to keep that blade from punching holes in me? And that is, I'm going to put both hands on that arm and I'm not going to let it go. We call it a baseball bat grip because that's kind of how you grab it. And I'm just going to baseball bat grip that arm and I'm going to put all my weight on it and I'm going to try to get that arm behind the same side leg. So if the knife is in their right hand, I'm going to put all my weight on it and I'm going to try to push it behind their right leg. And the reason I do that is because it makes them step in a way that's not normal for human beings. Like we're really good at going forward and backward. We're really good at going side to side. But when you start making us move on what we call the skinny X, so think about like if you're standing in the center of a clock, 6 o'clock's at your tail, 12 o'clock's at your head, you know, and then 3 and 9 to each side. If I start taking you towards the 11 and the 1, things start getting weird for you, right? If I start taking you towards like the 5 and the 7, you know, those little kind of skinny X's, you know, instead of an X like this, it's an X like that. If I start moving you in those directions, it's really hard for your body to accommodate that movement because we don't do it a lot. You know, think about if I had you stand on your right leg and then I have you kick your left leg straight back behind you so that your left foot is at, so the 12 1 2 at the 3 o'clock, so your left foot is at the 3 o'clock, so you're basically cutting around behind yourself, you know. Think about how unstable you are standing like that because the body's just not meant to move like that. So that's what I'm trying to do to this person is I'm trying to take that knife and push it down and behind that same side of their body so that they're basically pinned like this and they can't move. And now I'm going to start looking at pushing them into something or wrapping them up, moving around and getting both hands on that arm from the other side of the body like a body lock. Now how do I move around, pin that all down? Now maybe I'll think about accessing a tool because I'm in a good spot to access a tool. But prior to that, I'm going to focus on just putting all my weight on that arm, immobilizing it, keeping it off of me, and wearing them out. Because that's the other side of it, the benefit that we have in training hard to be capable citizens, to be an asset to our people and to our community, is that we have the physical conditioning to go longer than this person does, you know? And so I'm going to drag that dude down. I'm going to drag him into that deep water and let him drown. So, you know, I don't know how often he fights with somebody just hanging on to him, but this is what the fight's going to look like for him. I'm going to glom onto him and not let go, and I'm just going to wear him down. And then once he's tired, we've all experienced that in jiu-jitsu, you know, once you get tired, you can't defend yourself, but there's no tapping when you just try to kill me, dude, you know, or you try to kill somebody else. We can't have that. You know, that's not how we operate out here, you know. So then we're going to go ahead and go to work and start looking at accessing tools and ending the problem. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing I focus on. I try to keep it as simple as possible and no simpler, right? Which is stop that arm, because that's the weapon bearing arm. If I stop that arm, he can't put holes in me. And then I'm going to maintain control of that arm. And then, just like jujitsu, I'm going to improve my position. So I'm going to keep moving and improving my position until I'm finally in a place where I have him completely under control. And then I will access a tool. So I look at it, the four stages for me for a fight are always control the hands, because that's what's going to hurt you. Whether it's jujitsu, I don't want to let them get grips. If it's a fight with more serious consequences, I don't want to let them access a tool or get to my tools. So control the hands. Then I'm going to control the space, because whoever controls the space controls the pace. So if I'm taking up all the space and I'm not letting you move, even if it's Muay Thai or boxing, if I'm controlling the space, if you guys ever been in a ring with a really good ringmaster, I've been in the ring a couple times with a guy who just had such good footwork. We got a guy who's had like 80 some Muay Thai fights, and his footwork is such that you just never feel safe. You just always feel like you are stepping into a trap, you know? And so if I control that space, I'm controlling the fight. When I'm in that ring moving around with that guy, he's in control. I'm just waiting to get beat up. I'm just waiting for like, all right, well, I'll see you tomorrow, jujitsu, my friend. And we're gonna square this up. But but and then so control the hands, control the space, and then I want to get to a better position. And that better position is the majority of the time is perpendicular. If I am perpendicular to them, I'm in a better space. So if we're standing and I'm trying to control that knife, if I can get it so where if you look down on top of us, our hips formed a T, or I'm all the way to their back, which is even better, I'll take it. That's where I want to be. So most of the time, though, you're going to want to get to perpendicular, right? And then once I get all those three boxes checked, then I'm going to end it. And the way we end it is based on the rules. If there's no rules, then I'm going to end it by whatever means necessary, right? So that means I'm either going to submit them by some sort of choke or knockout, slamming their head into something or hitting them with something, or I'm going to grab my own tool. So acquisition. So we got submission, acquisition, or we'll transition to another space. Now's where I'll run. Now's where I'll put them into something because I have control of them and I'm controlling their movement. I'll run them into a building or into a car, and then I'm getting out of Dodge. I'm going to grab my family and we're gonna get moving. Now I can run, but to just dismiss everything as Nike defense or I'm going to pull my gun. That's man. I'm God bless you, man, but I don't think it's going to go that way. I think you need to have those skills, and part of that too is people that haven't pressure tested it will say things like that.
Yeah.
Where they think they're going to pull that pistol and that's going to solve the problem. They can draw and put two hits on in the A zone in like 0.8, 0.89, 0.85, Okay. But the other guy gets a vote. And then also there's the other side of it, which is what if nothing happens after you shoot him?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like guys get shot with pistols all the time. It doesn't kill them. And it doesn't end the threat right away.
Well, Paul, one of the things that I was going to add to that. So, like you, I came up in a Jeet Kune Do concepts path. Originally I met Mike Brown at Gibson's Martial Arts in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
And so I became an instructor there, and of course we did Kali. I felt like I was pretty comfortable with a knife. And then I took Ewo from Craig.
Oh yeah.
And I tell you something, it was a massive epiphany. And I knew, again, I'd already been to at least several ECQCs at that point. So I knew where the pressure testing, how important it was. But I hadn't been pressure testing blade work. It's one of those holes that I had at that point. But I remember thinking, man, this is way bleaker than I ever even considered.
Yeah.
You know, number one, it's way easier to deploy a knife than it is a pistol.
Yep.
But that goes both ways, right? It's
Yeah.
way easier for a bad guy to deploy a knife than it is for them to deploy their own pistol. You
Yeah.
know,
For
so
sure.
and man, once that blade starts moving, and even with a strong clinch background, strong, decent wrestling and jujitsu background, man, that blade starts moving, man. It's a bad day, man.
Yeah.
And so that was the first time I was exposed to the baseball grip defense aspects. And then in your course, you added the 2-on-1
Hmm.
Russian
Yeah.
alternates. Man, I tell you, that is all my go-to now. You know, between the
Yeah.
baseball grip defense, the 2-on-1, and then the additional tools that I learned from you that day. I help run the 0600 jiu-jitsu program at my gym, and I
Hmm.
bring that out fairly often, and everybody, including some SF studs, a former unit guy as well, are like, man, this is money. You know,
Yeah.
all those guys really like it. But I just wanted to tell you that's definitely become my go-to. And
Oh,
heck,
that's
even
awesome.
Aaron and I had just done one of our both pistol and kind of like a very light pressure. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, our folks got after it during
Hmm.
the evos, but definitely the knife defense stuff with attribution to you and Craig. We worked some of that, and they dug it as well. But anyway, I'm bloviating a little bit. Paul, you were going to say something. Sorry.
No, man, I like it. That's good stuff, man. I think that's how we all make each other better. You know, as we get out here and start doing this work and making good people safe, making good people dangerous is what it's all about, man. So I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear you like it and that it's been useful for you guys.
Oh, big time, big time.
For sure.
Well,
Yeah.
so
I,
I
that's
get.
I
Go ahead, Paul. Sorry, buddy.
Go ahead, man. No, I was just
Well,
gonna say that's just the main thing for me. Like the intro. Like if somebody were to say like, what's the 10-second lesson? I would say control the knife, control the weapon bearing arm. Don't let it forget the knife itself. Control the arm, right?
mhm.
Because you can't do much about. Don't try to like flip around with that knife and all that stuff. You know, like you, man. I spent a lot of time training in those arts, doing that kind of stuff, and then going not live blades, but going live in resistance showed me the error of my ways. And I tell people all the time, like, information is easy, transformation is not. You can get information with a Google search. You can get information with a YouTube search. You can get all the information you need on everything out there now. Like our society is almost open source now. You can just type something into Google and have a million hits in 17 seconds or something crazy. But what do you do with it? Do you take the information and work? That's where the transformation happens. That's where it becomes your information. That's where it becomes transformational for you. I had all this information. I had all this, Mafalindo Silat. I had, all the various Paquita Tertia. I had all these different influences and things I was studying. American Bowie knife. I'm studying all this stuff and still do because I love it. I just think it's cool now. Like I'm not going to walk around with a Bowie knife, but I think they're cool. I've got like 20 of those stupid things now. William April gifted me one and that just started the habit, of collecting these big old blades. But, my point in all that is, until I started testing it and still until I gave somebody back then a wooden training knife, now you can get the soft, the ones like Craig uses, and I can't remember the person that makes them now.
Yeah,
Going to
you talking
annoy
about the knock knives?
knock. Yeah,
Yeah,
the knock
yeah,
knife. You can get
yep.
the knock knives, and that's so much nicer to train with. You can get those now, but back in the day, man, I just had those wooden, katana style, training daggers that we had in the JKD world, and I remember giving it to one of my partners and just saying, "Dude, stab me." I gotta, don't stab me in the face because I don't have any head protection, but try to stab me and let's see what happens. I really don't know if anything that I'm training is going to work, you know? And that started kind of the lights coming on of like, it's okay to have a lot of information, but what are you doing with it? You know, and so you got to have that, you know, like I said, man, information's easy, transformation is not. Turning yourself into the person that's capable, turning yourself into the person that can handle yourself in that situation is not easy, but you can do it. And you just need to simplify it, and you need somebody to give you a roadmap. And the roadmap is just that: control that weapon bearing arm. Don't worry about disarming it. Don't worry about taking the knife out of their hand. Just control that weapon bearing arm and don't let them have it back. And do that until you can't mess it up. Do that until there's nothing they can do to get that blade on you. Do that until no matter what they do to you, they can't touch you with that blade. They can't, they can do all the goofy stuff, like what if they switch hands, you know? Do all of it. Don't let them get that blade on you. And once you can't mess up, you will understand and you will be a different person.
So then, beyond that first goal, so then when we're talking about getting better positions, are we then
Mm-hmm.
talking duck unders and position changes like that, or where do we go from
Seat
there? I mean,
belts.
just a
Yeah, then I start going for the 2-on-1s for greater control because I want to increase my control. So then we start getting into the more technical, like the Russians and that kind of stuff, where I can dump them on their butt, you know, or I can throw them head first into the pavement, you know. I can start dumping them out. From a 2-on-1, I can hit Ichimata and put them head first into the ground. We can start doing that kind of stuff where now I'm shutting them down now. So then we start moving into that side of it and also into the weapon access. So now you start off with just controlling the weapon bearing arm. Just put a timer on with your training partner and say, listen, man, for 2 minutes, I want you to try to stab me. And all I'm going to try to do is control that arm, right? I'm just going to try to get that arm and get control of it. And it's going to be frustrating in the beginning. It's going to be real frustrating. But you have to tell yourself, listen, if there are pictures and depictions in 14 whatever, 92 or 1430 something of some Italian dude grabbing both hands on the weapon bearing arm and pulling guard, he's got one foot on the hip, and then the next picture is him with the other foot on the other hip, and he's holding that guy out here and he's got him immobilized. If that dude could do it, I can do it. And so you just got to keep at it and just keep working at it. Get the timing down. If you have to, tell your partner to slow down a little bit so you can get the timing down of when to intercept, when to grab that arm and get control of it. And then once you get that, do however many rounds you have to do of that. Once you do that, then you move to the next step, which is I've got control of the arm. Now I want to figure out, how do I move around you, get to a better position so that I can access a tool? What do I need to do to move around this person, get to their back, or get perpendicular with them, pin that arm to their body, and then access a tool? And now we're going to do that for 2-minute goes. And just do that until you get it, until you can't mess it up. And it's, you know, like I said, man, it's not an easy process, but once you do it enough, you start to figure it out and you start to see a couple things like, okay, this route is probably better. Like an arm drag into a 2-on-1 is probably better with the blade than trying to duck under or what have you, you know. Maybe when they go to like stab me in the gut or they go to like jab me in the chest with the blade, you know, kind of moving away from that thing and throwing across and then closing with them, like that might be a good option, you know, like you start or jamming their shoulders up so that they can't rotate, giving them a bump in the chest and then grabbing the arm, you know, different things like that start to come kind of bubble to the surface because of the pressure you're putting it under, where you're just cooking this bad boy. And then those things start to show up for you. Then you get to the back, and then that's when so that you isolate it, right? You isolate the entry, you isolate the control. So I isolate how I get to the position, but then I isolate the position. Where do I want to be on this guy? And then where do I want to move to increase my control of this person in this position so that I can either A, access a tool, or B, put them into something that disables them long enough or incapacitates them long enough for me to get the heck out of here, you know? So does that make sense? Is
Oh yeah.
that kind of what you're asking? All right,
Oh,
cool.
most certainly.
Well, Paul, one thing that I'd like to bring up, and I've heard you talk about this before, and you kind of alluded to it just a minute ago. And I know there's likely some folks in the audience that might be currently asking this question. Well, what about disarms? How important are disarms? You know, you and I again came from a similar background, learned some real fancy disarms, you know, so on and so forth. How important are disarms?
Yeah, that's a good question, Eric. You know, like in the Kali world, nothing against that, man, because it put me where I am, right? You know, so I don't ever crap on where I came from, but there were some delusional tendencies, right, with the disarms. You remember all of them, probably the ones where we scoop the arm and we feed the blade back to him and
Mhm.
we give him his own knife back, and you know those phrases were always kind of thrown out there, like, well, now is where I turn his blade back on him and I give it back and I feed it back to him, or I disarm, you know, catch disarm, and then I strip the knife, you know, I strip it away, and then I have the knife, and then I use his own knife against him, and all these things, and then, man, that's cool stuff, right? It's cool, looks cool, sounds cool, and then when we would go with pressure, none of it would work. So for me, the disarm is so far down on the scale of things. I consider my disarm is when I slam his head through the wall. You know, the disarm's going to be when I start cracking rounds off, you know, or I start punching holes in him. That's going to be my disarm because I'm going to shut
There's
him
going
off, or I snap that arm.
yeah, there's going
What's
to
that,
be
man?
there's going to be a natural dropping and disarm of that usually of that weapon.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So when I go to that 2-on-1 and I crack that arm, you know, there's probably going to be a little bit of a disarm happen there. So that's a good question because it does come up a lot. But I kind of consider my disarm to be when I start breaking stuff. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to take that knife because, again, the knife is so tricky because, unlike the gun, where, you know, we've all done these demos, you know, where you put your thumb against the back plate and press the trigger. You know, Tom
Mhm.
Gibbons does that in his courses where he
Yep.
shows you, you know, like, look, it's just a pop gun. Don't give it more credit than it deserves. Especially when you're training students that are slighter, smaller stature, and they're like, I just can't control this gun. It just pushes me around. And then Tom does that, and it's like, does it though? You know, like it didn't knock your thumb off, didn't even hurt your thumb. So my point with that is just a lot of times in these scuffles, you know, we'll see the gun out of battery or get,
Mhm.
you know, disabled because
Oh
of
yeah.
being grabbed and stuff. But with the blade, man, you grab that blade, you're going to let go. You know, you grab that blade, it's going to leave a mark. And so you're going to injure yourself. So I don't even want to touch that thing. I want to keep it off of me. And what I want to disarm is the limb that's holding it. I want to break that thing. You know, I want to hurt that limb so that it can't do anything to me with it. He can't hang on to it.
Yeah, great answer. And it may have sounded like I was asking. I might have been asking a little rhetorically there because I know that's your philosophy on it. It's my philosophy on it now as
Yeah,
well. Um, again, anytime I've tried disarms during real pressure, yeah,
yeah.
they just did not work. Or
Doesn't work, man.
if they did work, it was it was luck.
There's a
Um,
picture I
Good.
just thought of. Man, I wish I had. I don't have my. I got a book. A friend of mine gave me a fencing or a sword fighting manual from Germany, and it's an old. It's from like the 1500s. It's a replica. It's not an original. But in one of the pictures, one of the depictions is always attack the weapon bearing arm, right? Is what they're talking about. So with your sword, when you're sword fighting, trying to get to the body, great idea, but the arm is going to be in the way. So I'm just going to attack his arm. So trying to take his arm. So there's a depiction of these two guys getting after it. and then one guy steps out, kind of zones out, and then the next picture is the picture of the sword in the hand severed on the ground because the guy's like chopped his hand off, you
Mhm.
know? And so it's, when I look at kind of that kind of stuff, it's like disarms work, but what really works is breaking that arm,
Mhm.
snapping that stuff, man, knocking them unconscious. That's a great disarm. I don't even want to deal with grabbing it, and if I have a large enough blade, that's kind of like the old defanging the snake thing. Like defanging the snake works great if I got a machete. If I'm like I love this thing. I got this from William April too. It's kind of funny, but the smatch
Oh.
it,
Oh,
this
wow.
thing's a beast, man. It's like, oh man, see if I got my glade. Getting totally off subject here.
No, this is fun,
Not off
man.
subject at all, Paul.
This is
Get
number 541 of 1200. So it's got Applegate and Fairbairn's signature on it, but it's pretty darn
Wow.
cool.
Hell
But
yeah.
if we're playing Defang the Snake and I got this, well, yeah, man. Yeah, we're probably going to defang something. Probably gonna, but if I got my little Spyderco or, Emerson folder or whatever, probably not going to be the same. And it's the same with disarms. If I'm dealing with, you know, a mentally ill subject that's like 120 pounds, frail, you know, could I grab their hand and like push the knife out of their hand, get it so it's not going to hurt me, and pry the knife out of their hand? Yeah, maybe. But if it's somebody who's actively trying to kill me and they're enraged and they're full of adrenaline and they're pain free and they're not feeling it, and I'm doing all this kind of stuff where I'm trying to like pop the knife out of their hand, I'm probably just going to cut myself up really good, you know? And, you know, even though we all have seen pictures or maybe even seen people who've been cut up real bad and they were still able to use their hands and all that stuff, man, that brachial artery runs through there. And I don't want to take a chance because
Yeah.
Murphy's Law says, what about good guys? If
Yep.
it can kill a good guy, it'll kill a good guy. But if
Yep.
it's a bad guy, probably not going to bother him, you
Yep.
know? And I think about, and not to make light of Trooper Coates' death, but I think about that often because that was the example for us in the police academy of, listen, here's a stud of a police officer, state trooper, 357 Magnum, 5 out of 6 rounds on the bad guy, didn't kill the bad guy. Bad guy's still doing time. Bad guy fires 1 round from a 22, punches through the armhole in the vest, nicks his aorta, and kills him. Right? So when it comes to that kind of stuff, I want to take luck, Murphy, whatever you want to call it, completely out of the equation.
Yep.
I don't want to mess around with that blade, man. I do not want to put my arms, my hand, anything on it. I just want to control the arm and go to work. And if they want to hang on to that blade while I'm breaking their arm, go ahead. You know.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, so this kind of is a little bit deeper question, I think. Then, this begs the question: over these arts over centuries, or at least decades, why does something that usually falls apart under pressure? Why does it become a part of the curriculum, say in college, disarms, etc.? How does that happen? And I mean, can I know that's a pretty deep question, but I think it'd be good to talk about why does that stuff happen?
Yeah. I think it's human nature. We always want more. We always think the answer is broader rather than
Hmm.
deeper, right? So if I really thought tomorrow I was going to have to stick fight somebody, I probably wouldn't spend a whole lot of time with like, redondos and florettis and all these other things. I'd probably spend a lot of time just learning how to swing really hard in and out, forehand, backhand, and work on my movement. But when you have a group of people who are constantly looking for the next thing, the next
Mm.
cool thing, the next shiny thing, you tend to start catering to that. Well, like, hey, what's a disarm? What's another way to swing this stick? Well, man, look, you can't even defend yourself now. You need to spend like another 2 years learning how to swing this stick and not get knocked out. But people tend to want, that's my opinion on it, is that people want to see like this cool stuff. And, if you look at jujitsu, what wins matches at the highest levels, right? It's surprising when you look it up. It's like armbar from guard, a guillotine type thing, rear naked, simple stuff. Simple stuff. But getting there is not so simple, right? Like we all roll. We know how hard it is to get to somebody's back who knows that's what you're trying to do, while they're also trying to do the same thing to you. They're trying to submit you, you're trying to submit them. It's not easy, and we would probably do well to just spend hours each week trying to sort that out. But what happens is you get some guy who's like, hey, I saw this cool thing on Instagram, you know, can you show me how to do it? And then you have all this other stuff happen and that's fun. It is fun. It's cool. But can you fight with it? I don't know. So I think that's kind of what happens sometimes is that maybe the people that are teaching or the people that were teaching down through the years, sometimes too, they just get bored. Like you watch like a high level boxer, working out with lower level guys, you start seeing him do some stuff like, man, what are you doing? It's like, just having some fun.
Mhm.
Like I'm just having some fun. But the problem is that other people see it and then they try to emulate it or they want to learn it because they think it's actually something they should learn, and it's like, man, nah, you, sh- you shouldn't be doing that. You don't have the attributes or the skill level to do that, So I think that's part of it sometimes is just people want those shiny things. They want the new cool thing.
Well, and Paul, I think ultimately, I agree with you. I wanted to make sure that I circle back and double down on what you said. I'm definitely not gonna crap on my background. That,
Yeah, for sure.
frankly, if it wasn't for Gibson's and the Inosanto family, you know, I wouldn't have met Mike Brown. I
Right.
wouldn't have. I wouldn't have then been pushed into training with Craig. I mean, none of that would have happened had it
Yeah.
not have been for me being at the, and that upbringing. And frankly, a lot of what we did at that gym was awesome. I mean, it's
Yeah.
where I was introduced to jujitsu. Yes, was it the best jujitsu? No, no. I think the highest level we had at that gym was a blue belt. You
Yeah.
know, but it was still exposure to some jujitsu, and also we did Muay Thai and we did boxing.
Yeah.
You know, as a matter of fact, that was what I gravitated to more at that gym than anything else was the Muay Thai
Yeah.
and the grappling. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not at all gonna, crap on that background because it is definitely what brought me to where I am as well. But I do agree a lot of the stick and dagger and a lot of that stuff was a lot of breadth and discovering reductionist, it was just a life changer, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, man. For sure.
So one quick thing I wanted to say, and I just want to draw our audience, Paul, your Instagram, and I'm kind of in agreement. Sometimes I loathe, and I'm using Craig's word. I remember before Craig was even on any kind of social media, he said, I loathe social media. However, it is it of course Craig's on social media now, and I think he sees some of the efficacy. Um, but again, it's a necessary thing for small businesses now.
Yeah.
But I was just going to draw our audience members, and I'll throw your Instagram into the show notes as well. But I think it's I just had it wrote down. Yeah, Paul Sharp SBG is your Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Um, Folks need to go out there. Paul puts excellent information out there. Not only is he given excellent self-defense tips, but man, you're putting a lot of positivity on there all the time as well.
Yeah,
You know, and your wife getting in there and doing stuff with you is been really, really cool. Folks need to go out there and check out what you put on it, because you can learn a ton just perusing. If you're going to be on social media, go to pages like Paul's is all I
yeah,
was going to say.
yeah. I
Good.
appreciate it, man. I try to keep it positive, and I try to put out there stuff that I would want to see or stuff I'd want to interact with. I try to stay away from the political and anything negative. I just try to stay away from it. I feel like we're surrounded by that, and the more that we can focus on the positive and making ourselves better people, more capable, more of an asset, rather than a liability. I just think the more we can do in that regard, the better we're all going to be. It just anything else, I'm just not interested in. I'm just not interested in all the other stuff.
I agree with you, buddy, and that's why I wanted to mention that, because yeah, it had been a little while since I'd been to your page,
Yeah,
or I would see you drop stuff on there, but it had been a minute, and sometimes I'm just reminded, man, I gotta, sometimes you just need to go on pages that are of
yeah,
value. So,
for
and I
sure.
man, I've saved a bunch of stuff that you put on there too.
Oh man, I
Um,
appreciate it.
yep,
I got
no,
banned for a little, not banned. I got banned on Facebook for a little while.
really,
Yeah, so I'm friends with Mickey and Shook, carry trainer,
hmm
and his gunfighter gun oil company is awesome. Yeah, excellent stuff, man. I use it on everything. And so I made a post about it, and it had a Beretta in it, one of my Berettas in it, just showing how I just boil it and put it back together and fix it up. And I talked about I like using gun lube rather than gun oil on certain parts. And I thought it was interesting information or would be beneficial to some people. And because I had people actually ask me, like, hey, how do you use, I see you use the gun oil and the lube. What do you do? Like, where does each go? Or how do you prefer to use it? So I'm like, oh, I'll throw a little post up. And Facebook dropped a hammer on me because they said I violated their community standards regarding weapons and stuff. So, and then Craig and some other guys are like, hey, man, did you stop posting stuff on Instagram? And no, I got this warning from Facebook. And I said, okay, well, it's your rules, man. Your place, your rules, right? So and then Craig and those guys are like, hey, man, are you still posting anything on Instagram? What are you doing? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm posting stuff every day. And they're like, never see it. So
mm,
then a friend of mine who does a lot of social media, her brother owns a social media company. I said, hey, how do I know if I'm banned or whatever it's called, shadow banned or whatever? And she
Hmm.
goes, oh, you go in here in your settings and it'll tell you. So I went in there and sure enough, they had 5 or 6 posts that I made that they felt like violated the community standards, and it was just that stuff, just like gun oil. Um, I talked about a knife that I found that was really cool for backpacking and hiking and stuff. If you have a knife on you, because you never know, out there, man, what you might have to dig yourself out of. Um, and yeah, so they just said that, hey, man, you violated our standards. And I said, all right, yeah, So I haven't changed how I post. I still post same stuff, weapon stuff, whatever. But if I sometimes disappear, that's what happened. It's like,
it's real possible, Paul, that
it,
that period of time that I wasn't seeing stuff. But I just want to comment about that. Yeah, yeah, it is their company. But it's just as infuriating to me that so much value for that can help people be safer is
mhm.
somehow pariah material. And I just get so frustrated with the way that these companies handle Second Amendment subjects, self-defense subjects. Man, it's just
Yeah,
but yet they are the biggest company. So heck, what do you do at that point? I
yeah,
don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just, I commented. John Valentine posted a comment about saying that the Combative Summit ad was approved by Facebook, and I just in passing I said, "Hey, John, I've kind of been hoping that I've been seeing. Well, no, I know how I said it. I've been intending to post on uh, posts that I've seen of Mark Zuckerberg training at jiu-jitsu. I'm like, hey, maybe it's going to change his philosophy on a few things.
Yeah,
I doubt it, but maybe. I don't know. We can
maybe
only hope, is what I
you can
said.
hope.
But
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu changes people. But goodness, man. I
yeah. I'm
mean,
hoping. I'm hoping with him getting into it that it'll change some things,
yeah,
in that regard. You know.
hopefully. But the BS of censoring, Second Amendment content is
Yeah,
a little
and
is
just
good.
self defense, self protection.
Yeah,
What is a knife for hiking have to do with weapons and community standards? I'm
exactly.
talking about like, hey, if you're out here and you pop your ankle or something, which is very real, happens all the time. This part of Idaho, you'll see life flights all the time this time of year.
Hmm.
And it probably same number during the winter months because skiing and snowmobiling and all that stuff.
Mm,
But this is very much an outdoor activity culture here, and you'll see life flights all the time. Where some dudes out mountain biking and wiped out, or hiking and or on the river and got took under, and things happen. And so if you're out there, and that's what I made the post about, was like, hey, this is an excellent multi-purpose camping knife. If you're out here and something goes wrong and you find yourself, you might be stuck here overnight, or because you can't get a signal in a lot of these places. There's no cell signal, you know. Yeah, somehow or another, that I just thought it was odd. I'm like, so you don't want us to talk about anything that makes citizens more capable?
yep.
Got it.
And could save their lives on the trail.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, got it. Well, I'm gonna keep talking about it, and you
Yeah.
can keep shutting it down, but I'm gonna keep talking about it, because I think it's important, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Aaron, what you got, buddy?
Paul, so what is your current deep dive and focus in your training? Let's
So
talk about
right,
some fun stuff.
yeah, man. So right now I'm deep diving in. We we have a competition team here every morning from 6 to 7 a.m. Monday through Friday. We get after it pretty hard. So it's basically like we just had a girl here who wrestled in college, and she's a national champion in judo, and she said that it felt like she was back in a wrestling room. So it's a pretty intense
Nice.
environment. Um, Training in there, getting back into that has been kind of my deep dive lately. Is just checking out all the different, like, lapel guard, and not really the worm guard stuff, but more like the lapel, like taking the lapel over their back and around
Mm,
their arms and things like that. Playing around with that, deep diving into that. Developing products specific for multidisciplinary. I've been working with Tier One Concealed out here, and we are really close to having a product that we could put out on the market that is something I've always wanted as far as a design. It's basically a holster and a knife and everything just in one place. Being
cool.
able to have that capability. And then also getting ready, I'm gearing up for the next pancreatic cancer fundraiser. So I'm going to start training for that, start running and getting ready for that. That's going to be, um, man, it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be 24 hours, every hour on the hour. I'm gonna run a 5K or row a 5K. So they're gonna alternate. So
Oh,
like
wow.
the even hours, the even numbers, I'll run 5K. The odd numbers, I'll row 5K on a rower, on ergo, and do that for 24 hours straight, and
That's legit, brother.
see how much we can raise. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. See how much money we can raise for pancreatic cancer research. It killed my dad.
Mm.
It's a genetic thing. It's in the family. So I do what I can, man, to and I've met so many people through just being out and, being in that world, I guess. I don't know if that's a good word for it, but being in that situation where you start meeting people who have lost somebody to cancer or they're dealing with it themselves. Man, it's pervasive. It is everywhere. And there's a lot of money out there. How do you say this? There's money given to research and stuff, but there's a lot of money out there raised and given to research, but it's just never enough, man. It's just never enough. There's so much, it's an evil disease, and trying to fight it, they'll get so close. When my dad was going through his thing, with pancreatic cancer, similar to kind of what got William, because of where it's located in the brain and the pancreas are two places that are really bad when they find it because it takes so long to discover it. It's not like, you have a cough or, you have something on your skin or something like that where you notice it right away. It takes a long time. By the time they find it, you're pretty much done, with pancreatic cancer or with brain cancer. And so my dad, he knew he only had 6 weeks. But when they found it, they're like, look, 6 weeks at the most, and they were right. They were not, one thing I've found about that community, a lot of the oncologists and stuff, they're very honest with you. They don't pull any punches. They tell you because, I don't want to tell you, well, 6 weeks, but you might live 6 months. And then how are you going to act? But if I tell you, look, man, 6 weeks at the most, that's it. No wavering. Like, you got 6 weeks left on this earth. Figure it out. Right. And so one of the benefits of having that knowledge was they said to my dad, like, look, we could do chemo. Not going to make any difference except make you real sick and real miserable. However, because of your condition, the tumor had wrapped around the aorta that runs north-south in our body, that feeds all the blood to our lower half of our body. And the tumor had wrapped around that. So it's inoperable, nothing they could do. And also the cancer was stage 4 right off the bat, stage 4. They said, listen, man, we can't do much for you, but you can do something for the future. And that is if you allow us to try some of these experimental drugs just to see if they make any difference at this stage. Because if they make a difference at this stage, what might they do if we catch it earlier? And so a couple of the drugs that they gave him, the chemo medications, actually did shrink the tumor that was wrapped around his aorta, which is phenomenal. It was excellent news, for people in the future. And so, I look at it like, but those drugs were expensive, because it was experimental, he didn't have to pay for it, but it would be expensive to give those drugs to somebody in the future, So it's just one of those things kind of near and dear to my heart. Met a lot of cool people. Every time I've done a fundraiser for them, I've met a lot of cool people and got a lot of support. And got a lot of support from our community, man. Our community comes through. My last fundraiser, we raised almost $10,000, in a short period of time, So that's what we're going to do this time. So we can keep, trying to beat this thing, man. Trying to set people up for the future where they have a chance, So I'm going to do that. We're training for that now. Funny as it sounds, man.
Can you repeat again when that is so our audience knows?
Yeah, that's going to be that will be in October. So my dad died on October 10th. So it'll be in October is when we'll do the event. And that'll give me some time to kind of condition up for it. Weird as it sounds, man, the row is brutal. So the row, I can do the run in 30 minutes. I can do the row in about 30 minutes. And that gives me 30 minutes to recover and get ready to go again, which is harder than I thought it would be. Getting, that running straight 75 miles or 100 miles straight isn't as bad as running 3 and then stopping and then running 3 and then stopping. Because when you stop, your body's like, oh, we're done. Cool. I'm going to get stiff and swollen, and if you keep moving, it doesn't happen. But man, what's been the challenge with the row is my hands are getting chewed up. My hands are getting eat up by that rower, and your butt like your legs, everywhere that's on the seat, the motion of moving on that seat, it's like it just tries to rip your backside off. So it's gonna be a challenge, man. I don't know if I can do it, but we're gonna do it.
Well,
At least.
we'll do our best to promote it coming up to it. I mean, we don't have a massive audience, but I mean, if even just a few people here and can lend a hand and
Oh
donate,
man.
then we'll certainly put it on our show for a handful of episodes leading up to it.
Oh man, that'd be awesome, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, no
It
problem,
definitely
buddy.
helps, man. Like you said, even whatever the size of the audience is, if you have a couple people that are just like, hey man, I'll give you $50,
Hmm.
or whatever they can do. I had people that gave 1,000, and then I had people that gave 10, and God bless them, man. You know,
Yeah,
so
we'll
I
do our
appreciate it
best to
because I
get the
look at
word.
it like whatever they give, it's more than they had to,
Yep.
So nobody put a gun to their head. They gave out of the kindness of their heart. So, uh, you know, I hope God blesses them. So,
Right on.
Well, Aaron, you raised your hand earlier. You had something else?
You know what? I think it got answered.
Cool. Well, we're sitting at an hour and 30. Aaron, you just want to start closing out with, you got any other jovial questions or?
Yeah, we were having a fun conversation about some music beforehand, and I think we all agreed at that point, man, we should have been rolling tape at that point, so to speak, although it's ones and zeros. But man, what's some of your music you're into these days?
yeah. So I've been listening to a weird kind of mix of music lately. So it's kind of funny. So my wife listens to a band called Red Fang. She was into Red Fang, and I think another one of those bands is Orange Crush or Orange something. And I started listening to that stuff, and I started really kind of appreciating it. It's a little more kind of rock and roll, old school hard rock style, straightforward stuff. I was really digging that. Um, and then I've also been listening to quite a bit of like the Misery Signals, Periphery, kind of that melodic, progressive, heavier metal. I've been listening to a lot of that, man, and just really digging it because I'm 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 finding when I first heard that stuff, I would listen to it and it just didn't really move me. It was a lot of shifting time signatures and stuff that's fun from a musician's standpoint to listen to and all that. But sometimes you just want to headbang. Sometimes you just want to just rock out, man. Just get in the groove and just lift weights or rolling or whatever it is, or road tripping. You just want to hear some good music blasting. And so it was kind of but then it grew on me, and then I started listening more to, especially like Periphery. Periphery really, listening to them, and then August Burns Red. I think it's called Mariana's Trench or Marina's Trench, something like that. But those kind of songs just really started like speaking to me and really started digging it. I guess it's like a language, right? The more you hear it, the more you start to
The more you
understand what.
understand it, oh yeah.
Yeah. And so listening to it more and then, hearing it more, and then it started like to click for me. I've been really digging that, man. And then on the other side of it, I've been listening to the new Black Keys album. I don't know if you guys heard that one at all, but that was pretty good, man. There's some good songwriting on there. There's some really good, some good stuff in there. So I've been digging that, man. What have you guys been listening to?
Well, incidentally, yeah, I'm wearing one of my older Metallica shirts from, this was the Death Magnetic tour that I took my son to in Buffalo as we were PCSing to JBLM area out in Washington. Now we're out in North Carolina. But
Yeah.
anyway, this shirt I found in the closet today. The new album, 72 Seasons, it's got a hand. Well, I'll just put it this way: it's got some really good songs on it. But it's one of those things. There's a few of them that are just growing on me. But I definitely have been listening to the new Metallica album. So and that and Chris Stapleton. I've been listening to a lot of Chris
Yeah,
Stapleton. Um, that
he's a
frankly, though,
great songwriter, man.
yeah. Did you guys hear him do the national anthem
Yeah,
during the? Not that I was crazy about football, but I saw that after the fact. That was amazing.
yeah. I watched it after the fact. So somebody sent me a YouTube link of that, and I was, man, that is something else, man. This guy's got talent. He's a really good songwriter. There's a special. Trying to think of what it was on. There was a special where he did a duet with Justin Timberlake.
Oh, interesting.
Who's
Yeah,
also a badass.
yeah. And I thought I was like, man, how is this going to work? But then when I heard it, I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, that's pretty darn cool, man. That's a good mix, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, so those two albums, and I've also been back to listen to Chili Peppers, just hitting shuffle on Chili Peppers because I've been kind of, you know, getting back to a little bit of their funky music and messing
yeah,
around with Chad Smith's phrasing I like to play with on my kit. So
yeah.
yeah, that pretty much that's it for me music wise. I'm always listening to talk radio, or excuse me, podcast. Goodness, talk radio and podcast, but
Yeah.
music wise, that's what I've been listening to.
Well,
Nice, nice.
I'll tell you this, and it's what led us to getting Jason Beeler from Saigon Kick on the show. Man, I've been listening to a lot of his new solo stuff, which is kick ass. Amazing songwriter, amazing singer, amazing guitar player. I've been digging on that, and I think I might have even said something to you, but they've been around for a long time, but a Canadian band called Big Wreck. It's like
Huh.
if you took King's X and um, I don't if you mix King's X and Dream Theater together, and that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but they're this kick ass, amazing band with all this melodicism of like King's X. That's and the singer, excellent. The singer kind of sounds like a little bit like Chris Cornell,
Oh,
but
cool.
He certainly does.
Yeah.
just amazing songs. And man, I wanted to bring this up, a sick album I found by Silk Sonic, who is dude Bruno Mars,
Yeah.
and I can't remember the other guy's name, but holy cow. There's a live clip of them playing a song called 777, and dude, one of the singers is playing drums, and holy crap.
Oh, that's
It's
cool. Is that
so
with the
yeah,
Anderson? Is that with the Anderson Paak? Is that that one?
yes. Yes, it is.
That's
It's
what. Yeah,
exactly
that's
who
a
it
good
is.
one. Yeah, that's a good
Man,
one, man. That's a
yeah.
good band.
Yeah, so yeah, that's another cool thing that see that's you know, it doesn't matter what genre or kind of music there's two kinds of music. To quote Jason Beeler quoting Miles Davis, there's two kinds of good music. The good stuff and the other kind.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's it. Like Buddy Rich had that joke. Of like, what's he allergic? He's only allergic to two things: country and western. But then later on, when they were seriously discussing it, he said, "Listen, I only listen to good music. That's it. There's good music and there's not good music, and I'm only listening to good music, no matter where it comes from." So that's pretty cool, man. Oh, the other thing I've been listening to lately too is Mastodon. I got back into Mastodon again, and checking them out, and just because I always end up going back to the heavier stuff. I listen just being a metalhead, my whole life, and
Rock
I end up
on.
going. What's that?
I just said rock on.
Yeah, exactly. I end up going back to that, and I was listening to a bunch of like Anderson Paak and Anderson Paak and those guys, and kind of went down a rabbit hole of that for a little bit. And then for about 2 weeks, I just listened to a whole bunch of Macedon. I just couldn't get enough of it, you know? And so I don't know if that's my brain's way of resetting, you know? You know, I
I
don't know.
keep hoping that I know it's a tribute band, I should say, is Pantera's out on the road with Zach
Yeah,
Wild and is it Charlie Benente? I think it
yeah.
is
Guy from
the
Amtrak. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I thought that was a pretty cool lineup. So I need to
Bro,
pay
I
closer attention and
I
see
know
if
a
they're
lot of
coming through here.
people are there's a lot of fans that didn't dig that, you know, but I'm there's Phil that like you were talking about different members earlier, Paul, about members of bands. Dude, Phil was a huge part of Pantera, and if he's doing, and then you got someone like Zach Wild doing his thing, dedicating it to Dime. I'd pay to see that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah,
pretty
you still
damn
got Rex
cool.
there, you know. You still got the bass player
Yep.
there,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you know, it's like, yeah. I mean, as long as they're staying true to the feel, you know, and they're not trying to, you know, take off, do their own thing, and go somewhere else with it, you know, recreate it basically. But they're just trying to do it like it should have been done or like it was done. You know, I'm good with that. You know, it's
Yeah.
like man, it's kind of like the old thing, like when Metallica came out. Um, when they came out with their more melodic records. You know, they had their CDs come out that were a little more, I guess, radio friendly. You know, Enter
Hmm.
Sandman and songs like that. You know, they had
Yep.
those came out, and their fans were just split. You know, it was fans that were like, I like it. You know, and then there was fans that were like, that's garbage. You know, it's not Master of the Puppets. It's not Metallica. You know, and it's like, man, you got to give them room to grow, man. You know,
Yep.
they're growing, they're changing. You know, it's Miles Davis early stuff didn't sound like the stuff he's doing when he died. You know, and
Right.
nobody threw a hissy fit about that. You know, it's like let these guys grow, but also at the same time too, if something happens in the band, you know, like Slipknot, you know, Joe Jordison dies, you know, and
Mm.
now you know he's not available to play anymore. What are you going to do? Or Avenged Sevenfold, you know, the
Yep.
Rev dies. You know, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
You know, it's like, well, you bring somebody in. When they play the old songs, they play them the way they were played. You know, but when they play new stuff, they play it the way they played it. You know, and I think you just gotta, as a fan of music, it comes back to, is it good music? All right, man. Well, I'm gonna listen to it. You know, and if
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not good music, then I don't want to hear it. You
Well,
know, so
it's interesting, Paul. So my son and I, back in I think it was 2017, 2018, during, so what tour? Goodness, I'm drawing a blank right now. Um, Hardwired, goodness, Hardwired to
oh yeah,
Self Destruct, which had some killer songs on it too. So we saw Metallica at CenturyLink in Seattle.
yeah,
Awesome concerts. Went to several concerts there, and Avenged Sevenfold opened for Metallica. It was awesome, man.
oh
I
yeah,
was pumped to see them,
yeah,
and that was a killer show, man. Talk about a great memory. That
yeah.
was a great time
That's
with
a
my
real cool
son.
one, man. What's the best concert you guys ever been to?
That's a dang good question.
Yeah,
I'll answer it right away, Eric. But
go ahead,
you
Aaron.
go. No, you go ahead. You go
So
ahead.
to be frank with you, it is a tie, and it was likely that Metallica concert and Coldplay in the same place.
Oh yeah,
And Coldplay, my wife is a huge fan of Coldplay, and I probably love Coldplay mainly because of her, and
yeah,
they're outstanding musicians. But
yeah. They're
yeah, I
good,
would
man.
say those two, and that was very recent. I think it's because there was so much. Man, there was just an incredible set of memories about around both of those concerts
Yeah,
that I think that's why.
yeah, for
So
sure.
Man, it's not even a question. It was Harry Connick Jr. Um, man, he comes out and he does this kind of lounge-esque kind of thing with just a trio, and he built through the night. And I literally just have not seen someone with as much talent as him and the daftness of entertainment.
Yeah,
I was floored the entire concert. And it's sometimes people may think that comes out of left field, but dude, Harry is a badass in my book. So yeah, that was the,
yeah.
I would say
Oh,
that
that's
was the
cool.
best. How
That's
about you?
really, yeah. Oh man. So there's three that I always think of. So the first one in that kind of that tie there would probably be Van Halen in 1984.
Oh
So
wow.
You
it was the
saw them in
last.
night. Wait a second.
Yeah,
Let's back that up. You saw them in
yeah,
1984.
yeah. I was a kid, so it's actually
Holy
1985.
crap.
Yeah, it
Okay,
was.
but it would have been from the 1984 album though.
Yeah, it was the
History, dude.
1984 album.
History.
Yeah, David Lee Roth was like peak performance, like peak, entertainment. Just amazing. Got blown away. Just amazing. Got just never seen anything like that. Um, and then after that, man, I don't know. It's a toss up because I saw Tool last
Oh
year,
yeah.
and we were like killer seats. We were like right up front, and that was just amazing. Like just so just indescribable how tight that band is and how good they are and just feeding off of each other, and every song turns into like going down another area. Like they play it, kind of like the record, but then they just go off onto their own thing. um
Awesome.
that and then it's either one of those two or and this one's out of left field too, kind of like Harry Connick, but Lionel Richie.
Oh
Oh,
wow,
So
yeah.
I saw Lionel Richie. It was 3.5 or 4 hours of him doing songs. The tour was him doing songs from every era of his career, starting in the 50s. And he
Wow.
did nothing but top 10 hits that he had written and performed from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. And it was amazing. It was the first time that I realized the power of songwriting.
hmm
Like I've thought about it before, but I never thought about it like that. But there was like a point in time where I looked around this place and it's packed, sold out concert, large hall, everybody's singing, and they're all ages. You got little kids, you got grandmas, and you got everything in between, and they all know every word to every song, and it means something different to all of them. And I'm like, that is a gift, man. That is a talent that you work hard to develop. But that's all. There's something there though that's just a gift. Like how do you write something, right? That connects to so many people that everybody thinks that's their song. This is my song. Like this says exactly what I was feeling in that moment. This song will be with me forever. And I'm like, man, this guy wrote 3 4 hours worth of songs for for like 50 years. He's been writing these songs and performing them, and all these people have been connecting with him. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's next level. Like, being able to write songs that actually connect with people, that cause them to feel something or whatever the case, like that is a skill, man. That's next level. Like I never thought about it. Like I just remember sitting there in my seat and looking around. I was kind of so I was kind of stage right. So I was up in the kind of the seats about 10 rows up, and so looking straight across the side of the stage. So musicians always want to sit there, right? So we can see what's going on,
Yeah.
with the band and everything. But I just remember
Exactly.
like looking out over the crowd. At one point, it was like "Say You, Say Me,"
Oh
that
yeah.
song.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's singing it. Everybody knows all the words. And I just remember thinking, This is incredible. Like, this guy has written songs that every single person in here has experienced at some level, whether they're 80 years old or 8 years old. They connect with what this guy writes. How do you do that? Because if you can do that, man, you can change people for the better. If you can connect with people in that way right there, you can change people for the better. You can do all kinds of good things. Just in, if you could do that in your circle, how much good could you do? Right? Like, we go out and we teach a class. If I can teach a class, I average in our jujitsu classes, we average 20 or so people per class, right? And there's 5 or 6 of those every single day. So about 100 and some people every day. If I could find a way to say something that connects with each one of those people each day, that helps them understand jujitsu better, that helps them improve in some way, like, how much better would we all be? Like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? I just got it. I just went down like this crazy like wormhole of communication. How do you communicate to people in such a way that regardless of their background, like, didn't matter, white, black, Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, old, young, male, female, whatever, didn't matter. They got it. Like, that music, those lyrics, those words meant something to all of them in a different way, right? I was like, man, I'm learning something right now. I'm being taught a lesson right now about the
Yeah.
importance of being able to communicate with people, and what they take away from your communication too. When they walk away, what did they take away from it? And it's just, so yeah, one of those three, but definitely the Lionel Richie one is closer to the top, just from that purpose of, like,
Yeah.
holy cow, you know, this guy's an awesome tool, just pure musicianship and just incredible, just sonic overwhelm. Just being
I
like,
bet.
like, holy cow, that is some power coming off that stage. And then David Lee Roth and Van Halen, that era of Van Halen, just the excess,
Yeah.
Michael Anthony shotgunning Jack Daniels and playing
Yeah.
an incredible bass solo. Like, what? And then Eddie Van Halen. I mean, you don't even need to say that. Just say Eddie Van Halen.
Oh yeah.
It was
Well,
incredible.
you made me think of another one. I will say the actually probably the funnest night of my life, not just concerts, was, so you can look around the room and see a handful of my guitars. A guy named
Oh,
Saul Cole built those for me.
nice.
A super cool guy. Long story short, I had texted him about something about one of my guitars, and I said, "Hey, I'm taking Josh, my son, to the Foo Fighters tonight because he knew he had met my son and he knew that we were Foo Fighters fans. And on our way there, I get this call from this guy, and he says, "Hey, this is Sean. I'm one of the Foo Fighters guitar techs, and my buddy Saul called me and said he wanted me to make this night the coolest night of your son's life, or best concert of his life." And so he said, "Call me when you get here. I've got backstage passes for your family, etc."
Oh, that's
So
cool.
this is the best way I could show it. Before they went on, they brought my son out. It wasn't a full house, but I'd say there was 5,000 people in there.
Yeah.
And they brought my son and put Chris Shefflett's guitar on him, and it was the crowd screaming for my
Oh, that's
son up
so cool.
there.
That's
You
so
know,
cool, man.
and then we spent the night, like you said, literally stage right on the side of the stage, and my son was sitting on the stage.
Nice. That's
So
awesome, man.
and I've got a video of my son sitting there, and then there's a breakdown, and they're everybody, the crowd, they stopped playing and were singing Hero. So pretty pretty cool stuff, man. That's the cool thing about this community. People on the outside that try to shut down your freaking Facebook posts, but then they don't realize they talk about peace and anti-violence or whatever. Do when we break it down, the coolest people in this community, the toughest people in this community are also the most loving. And here we are having a gushing conversation about music, you know.
Yeah,
So
man. Yeah, that's the
what a
thing.
great, what a great conversation, man. I think this is a good time for us. Boy, we've got an hour and 55 minutes of amazing stuff. This has been a
Excellent
blast,
content.
Paul. So
Yeah, man.
thanks so much for spending. We're here on a Saturday. Thanks so much for spending your Saturday afternoon with
Yeah,
us and just making this day a funner weekend day for me for sure. So thanks,
And
buddy.
mine as well. And tell your wife, if you guys are willing to do it sometime, the third show, maybe if she's willing to come on as well, because some of the
oh yeah,
stuff you and your wife do together just as inspiring as well.
yeah.
So
She would love it, man. She is amazing, man. You guys would love her. You know,
Awesome.
she is amazing. So, especially coming out of a dark place and, meeting somebody, man. Yeah, it's been great. It's been phenomenal, you
we're
know.
happy for you, Paul.
Thank you, bro.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Excellent.
Well, you guys have a blessed evening.
Yep.
You
You
too,
too, man.
guys.
Yeah,
Take it
thank you
easy.
guys.